All right, we're live here in week three. Well, technically, I guess it is week four. We were not on the air last year, but welcome to the spread here on January 19th. Um, Happy to be back after the 1 week hiatus, and I'm feeling really good about today's picks. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, we've got some winners. I can guarantee you that.
I think last time we were on the air, we were 12-8, I believe.
Yeah, we had a good day the last time we were on, and I think this week we've been doing pretty well. We had a rough one on Thursday that was a little fluky, but overall I think we've been doing well, and I think the biggest thing is we've been able to refine our process and really focus on the games that we really know about, the conferences we really know about. So that should lead to more wins. I think less bets. Maybe we're still going to have a good amount, but definitely I think we'll have a better success rate that way.
All right, so as I did last week, as we give our each pick, I will go into the comments section, throw our picks in real time. Those also come up if you're watching after the fact, so you'll be able to track our picks that way as well. So if you go to the end of the video, you don't want to watch the full video, you'll see all our bets there.
But of course you want to watch the whole
Of
video.
course you do, yeah. If you're in a time bind, and
Yeah.
you can just get to the end. All right, so we're going to start. I actually have my picks in order by time today,
Oh, you
Chris.
do? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, then let me. As you can start, I should actually
All right.
get mine in order too.
I have a 12:30 start.
Ooh.
So I will start there with Davidson and Richmond, and Davidson's off their first conference loss of the year. They have had a little bit of trouble shooting the ball in conference play so far. They're usually very reliant on the 3-point shot. But I think that they'll get things together against a Richmond team that does not defend really much well at all. So it's a big number. It's 10 points for Davidson. Actually, you might be able to get even 9.5 at this point. I think Davidson's defense is going to be too much for Richmond, and I think they find their shooting stroke a bit. So I am laying the wood here. Davidson -10. That's my first pick of the day.
All right, and a little sneak preview to some of my picks. I will also have a -10. So we're getting spicy here this Saturday.
Nice.
I think you have the next one too.
My next one is I have Illinois State and Evansville. Is that the one? Oh no, sorry. I have Canisius and Fairfield. Yes. There we go. Canisius, I think, is just the clear better team here. And I was actually looking a little bit deeper into home court advantage. KenPom actually lays it out pretty nicely on his site. And basically all the MAC schools, and I was trying to figure out why there's so many upsets in the MAC. All the MAC schools, their home court advantage is under 3 points. So if you consider that, and you consider that Fairfield is a 3.5-point favorite in this game, that's implying that Fairfield's the better team here. And I just don't think that's the case. I mean, you look at last year even, because Canisius basically had the same team last year as they do this year. It wasn't even close. I mean, Canisius ran through the conference. Their conference record was 15-3. This year, they're off to a little bit of a rough start. They're 3-2. But I think that they're going to start getting things together, Canisius. So they just went to Quinnipiac and beat them there. I like them to come out and cover the 3.5 here against Fairfield. And also, I'm taking the money line, so I'm splitting half and half, money line and spread on Canisius.
What we call a sprinkle, folks.
Yes.
So I'll get going with the next one. I got some 2:00 games here, and I think this is probably my favorite bet of the day. And that's Oakland at Detroit. And I like Detroit here. The Titans, they've been a resurgent team this year. They're just much better than Oakland. And the fact that they're only laying 2 is kind of weird. Oakland's defense is terrible. They're one of the worst in the country, and Detroit has a pretty high-powered offense. They've, been able to shoot the ball well from 3. They shoot it from 3 a lot. And Oakland is similar in that aspect where they shoot the ball from 3 a lot. They have the top 6 3-point shooting percentage of the nation. However, that's one of the things Detroit does well on defense. They take away the 3-point shot. And other than that, I think Detroit should win the turnover battle here. They should keep them off the free throw line a little bit. It just doesn't seem to me like this Oakland team. And I feel like Oakland is a team that's gotten a lot of respect this year just because of who they've been in the past.
Mhm.
And I just don't see it. Detroit's always been kind of a bad team. Oakland's always been good. But Oakland's defense is terrible, and their offense is very much reliant on taking a heavy amount of 3-point shots and them going in. And I think, because Detroit should be able to at least limit that a bit, I like them a lot here at -2.
All right, yeah, I like that pick too. Detroit, I like what they're doing, and they're off to a really good start.
Yeah, they're one of the teams. Yeah, maybe we'll try to get their coach on too. They're one of the teams that I've. Although it's sneak preview, we will have another Horizon League coach on next week.
Yeah.
Got some more 2:00 games. First off, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Now, this one is tough because the value is no longer there. I would bet if it goes back down to 4. If not, I would leave it alone. But right now, they're -4 at Wichita. I think Wichita is pretty bad this year. I think they were able to get a big win over UCF last week, but that was because they really couldn't start off 0-3 in the conference. And meanwhile, Cincinnati, they just are better in really every aspect. I mean, Wichita's defense, the only things they really do well to a even small extent is they're okay at defending the 3-point shot. Cincinnati doesn't take any of those. And they clear the defensive glass relatively well. And Cincinnati is one of the top 20 offensive rebounding teams in the country. So I don't think Wichita's defense is going to really do much. And on offense, they've just been really bad this year. I mean, they haven't really been able to do much. They've, they've struggled a lot. This is not your grandpa's Wichita team. And Cincinnati, obviously, they have a good defense as they always have. So if you can get Cincinnati at -4, another game at 2 I have is JMU, the Dukes. Now, if you follow onto the show and follow onto their picks, you'll see that JMU is a team that I bet a lot. I bet them a lot last year too, and I think because they were underrated. And it's starting to look like this way again. They seem to be a little under the radar during conference or non-conference play, and then they start to turn it on. I mean, their offense has gotten much better. And this Drexel defense is just so bad. I mean, they were barely able to cover against Towson, and Towson is one of the worst teams I've seen in college basketball years. Meanwhile, JMU, they've been able to do some things pretty well. They can get to the free throw line. They can shoot threes. Both of those, I think they should have advantages over Drexel. I think that they should be able to. Drexel's not going to force any turnovers. They're not going to make them comfortable. And they're laying Drexel is laying 3.5 here. So I would take the 3.5 with JMU. You may be able to hold out for 4. It's been bouncing back and forth. But the thing is, this Drexel team, and it's kind of a theme with the Colonial teams where it's really hard to rely on favorites in the Colonial because those games are kind of all over the place. And I think especially that holds true with Drexel, who has, one of the worst defenses in all of college basketball. So I like JMU 3.5 or 4 if you can get it.
All right. I got a 2:00 game as well that I will dive into now. Illinois State and Evansville playing their second game of the season already. A lot of the Missouri Valley games are actually rematches from a couple of weeks ago. Evansville and Illinois State played to a 58-46 final when they played back on January 5th, which was just 2 weeks ago from today. That total would be 102 points. 104 points. The total in this game is 135. Now, I'm not saying that just because they scored 104 in game one means that, this is the biggest lock of the century. But I just feel like that has to be considered. And Evansville and Illinois State have had the two best defenses in the Missouri Valley Conference since conference play began. Now, the only caveat here is they both play at a pretty fast tempo. I'm going to take the first half under here, not let those tempos start to set in. I'm going to try to eliminate some of that, just focus here on the defenses. Evansville, very reliant on getting to the free throw line. Illinois State does not foul. Illinois State, very reliant on the 2-point shot. Evansville, best 2-point defense in the conference. I just like the matchup here. I think there's a reason why that game was so low scoring the first time, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to hope that this trend continues. So I'm going to take the Evansville-Illinois State game first half under 64. Should be pretty widely available.
All right, I think you've got some more to keep. So if you want to keep going.
All right. Louisiana Lafayette at Louisiana Monroe. I think that this line, this is one of my favorites of the day. I think that Louisiana Lafayette and some books may just have them listed as Louisiana. I think they're trying to shed the Lafayette at this point.
Yeah, I think they are.
But they are. They were a very good team last year, and I think that reputation is kind of holding this line where it is. Right now, it's standing at, I think, Monroe only -2.5, which in my opinion is a steal.
Yeah,
Monroe's been the better team this season, and they're home. And Louisiana Lafayette just lost one of their best players just 4 games ago, I believe. Yes, he's missed the last 4 games, so all of conference play, and they're 2-2 since they lost him. Now, Monroe is also 2-2, but it's been a very strong 2-2. Their 2 wins were the first 2 games. Their 2 losses last week at Georgia Southern by 1 and at Georgia State by 1. Georgia Southern and Georgia State could very well be the 2 best teams in the conference. So I think Monroe has been playing really well. I think this is a light line, so I'm going to take Louisiana Monroe -2. If it's 2.5, maybe just buy it down to 2, -2, -120. Either way, I think you're getting some really good value here. So take the Warhawks. I like them this year, -2 points. Do I have others that I need to get
we're on to the 4 o'clocks, and I think I see you have one at least, so why don't you go for it?
Okay, yes. This is my favorite bet of the day. And actually, it just got bet back up to where all the listeners and viewers can now get the same line that we got, which is Southern Miss +7.5. Now, this game is going to be extremely low scoring. And so the points that you're getting in this game are more valuable than a game with a total of, let's say, 150. The total in this game is 124. You're getting 7.5 points. That's a pretty large percentage of the total points that are going to be scored already. Southern Miss is playing really well. They've won their last 3 games. Old Dominion, though, not very convincing of late. 1-point win against Louisiana Tech was nice, but they only beat FIU by 1. They lost to Florida Atlantic. They've been a little bit underwhelming since conference play began, and that's mostly because their offense is just extremely inconsistent, and their defense has actually not been playing as well as Old Dominion teams of the past. And I think a main reason for that, again, we're going back to injuries here. Marquise Godwin has not played in any of his team's conference games. They had won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They had won 8 games in a row before getting into conference play with him playing all of them. Once he went out, 3-2 in their last 5, and one of those 2 losses was to a very bad team in Florida Atlantic. So I just like the value here with Southern Miss. And then a little bit of a wild card here is that Southern Miss, best 3-point shooting team in the conference. Old Dominion, 13 out of 14 at defending the 3. I think that's going to be a major factor to get Southern Miss the potential outright win. So I actually like Southern Miss plus the 7.5, and I like Southern Miss on the money line. Let's go full unit on the spread, half a unit on the money line plus 250.
Well, Joe, it's actually now up to +8, +270. I see.
There you go. So
there you go. Just so much value. I got the next game I got is the one that I said laying 10, and that is William and Mary, the Tribe. Now they're facing Elon. It's 10.5 now, which I would still take. Wouldn't want it to get much higher, but this is a game, and usually we don't like to lay these big spreads, but this is a game where I think it's necessary. I think Elon is one of the worst teams in all of college basketball. They are much worse than every single, much worse than every other Colonial team. They're awful. So what they've done this year, I mean, they're just terrible on both ends of the ball. And William Mary, not a bad team, not a great team, but they should be able to score pretty easily. They shoot a lot of threes. So and Elon, gives up 39%, one of the worst percentages of all of college basketball. The only thing Elon can really do is just chuck threes. They shoot actually the 11th most in college basketball. But Elon's 3-point defense has actually stepped up quite a bit in conference play. They now hold their opponents to 33% from 3 in conference play. And, well, yes, it's been a small sample size. Some of the teams they've played, Northeastern, Hofstra, Drexel, Delaware, very good 3-point shooting teams. So it's impressive what William Mary has done. So the last edge I like with this game is the fact that William Mary, their last game, they were home, and they just got trounced by Northeastern, lost by 20. And this was last Saturday. This was a full week ago. So they've been sitting with this all week, and that was after a 3-overtime loss to Hofstra. It's been stewing a lot, and William Mary, I think, is going to come out guns blazing, especially against the Elon team, who just played Hofstra probably the best team in the conference. Very close, only lost by 3, almost beat them at home. I just think Elon probably used all of its magic, and I think they're just going to get destroyed today.
All right. That is okay. So I'm going to put 10 in the chat. You're saying 10.5 is okay, though.
10.5 is okay. I would be okay. I'll go with another one. I think I have another one, and you may have another for 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'll go to that the aforementioned Hofstra, and we have the Hofstra.
And by the way, hold on, Chris. Let me cut you off here. Mike Gallo says Virginia Tech -17. Thoughts?
Yeah, he told me that this morning. He said that it was a big lock because they got blown out by Virginia, and they would come out strong. So I figured a first half. Maybe.
All right, well, folks, if you have any more picks that you want us to talk about, mention them in the comments section here. Thanks, Mike, for giving us your input.
If he gets this, he'll be 100% on the spread, and if he doesn't, he'll be 0. So this is a lot in his reputation. Back to Charleston Hofstra. I like the under in this game. I should be at 143. And these two teams, they play very slow. And I know that may not be something that happens a lot in the Colonial. There's a lot of high-scoring games. But the thing is, a lot of these high-scoring games, even with some of the slower tempo teams, they have bad defenses. And Charleston has actually had a pretty good defense this year, and they're second in the conference. And Hofstra's is all right, and they're first in they've both gotten better. Both teams are top 25 in the nation and not allowing free throws, so that's good for the under. Both teams are top 25 in the nation in taking care of the ball, turnover percentage. That's great for the under. It's just a little too high for me. Charleston has not really played great recently in terms of scoring wise. They don't shoot many threes, and they're the worst 3-point shooting team in the conference and the best at defending the 3 in the conference so far this year. And they've played some games where Delaware, a bad defensive team, Northeastern, a bad defensive team, they've played these low-scoring games. Now, 143, I think, is just kind of high, and I know Hofstra's had some higher-scoring games as of late. But again, these two teams are a little different, I feel, than the rest of the Colonial. So I think it's going to be a grinded-out game, and I would take the under here at 143.
All right, under 143, Charleston Hofstra. I have one more 4 o'clock game. Common theme for me today: injuries. We have another game here where I think the team is being overvalued because the market is not considering an injury. Valparaiso has played 2 games since losing Ryan Fazekas. I don't think he's going to play today. This is not confirmed, so but I do like the bet. Even if he does play, he's probably not going to be 100%. They did beat Southern Illinois last week without him, but then they went to Loyola and they got absolutely destroyed. They lost by 17, only scored 54 points. I think they're going to struggle to score a lot against Northern Iowa today. Valparaiso is a team that I've liked so far this year, but I feel like Northern Iowa is actually starting to get their stuff together a bit. They won at home against Drake and at home against Indiana State last week. Their offense has been playing a lot better in conference. They shoot the 3 ball a lot, so it's going to be very dependent on the 3. But I feel like they're going to win the turnover battle and they're going to win the battle on the board. So they're going to get a lot more shots up. And when they're getting 5 points like they are today, I feel like that's a good recipe for a win. So for the 3rd time today, and this is actually my last one, just happened to be my first 3 picks, or 3 out of 4, I guess. We are going back to the money line here and taking Northern Iowa. Unit on the spread +5, and then we're taking the money line, which I believe is +200 at this point, maybe.
Right now, so I'm seeing 4.5 right now.
Okay, 4.5 I think is okay.
4.5 is I haven't gotten that one yet, so I might just go for it now.
All right. Do you have a 430? Because I have a 430.
No, you got a couple. You got a couple more before me.
All right. Dayton at St. Bonaventure. Let's talk injuries again. St. Bonaventure has really struggled offensively, and I bet on them the other day against Rhode Island. They hung a little bit, but ultimately were unable to cover. Nelson Caputo, my brother, suffered a concussion earlier in that game, very early in that game, and I don't think he's going to play today. And that's a problem.
You have the inside scoop.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while, though. The reason that this is a problem is because Caputo is the only one that shoots over 40% from 3 on the team. And even with that, St. Bonaventure only shoots 32% from 3 And in the conference, it's even worse, 25% from three. They're really going to struggle to score in this game because what do you go to if you can't shoot the three? Well, you go to trying to get to the free throw line, and Dayton, number one in the conference at preventing teams from doing that. You try to get 2-point shots. Well, Dayton's number one in the conference at defending the two. So I think that St. Bonaventure is going to have a massive, massive struggle trying to score today against Dayton. Dayton is awful loss. They played tough at VCU, lost by 5. So I think that they're going to come out focused. If they want to win this conference, they're going to need to take care of business in games like today. Dayton -2, -120. I like that one a lot. And then another game at 4:30, which actually just moved. Chris, the audience is going to get a better line than we got here. A rare occurrence in the spread. But Central Michigan is now getting 2.5 at home against Ball State. Ball State is an enigma. I cannot figure out Ball State. But this is a scenario where I just feel like Ball State is getting way too much respect on the road against a team that has played extremely well in the conference. 3-1 so far for Central Michigan, 14-3 overall. Both teams are going to play quick. The advantage here that I like for Central Michigan is that they're going to be able to, I think, score at will. They get to the free throw line a lot. Ball State fouls a lot. And they shoot 39% from three, and Ball State has allowed teams to shoot 40% in the conference so far. So Central Michigan is going to be able to get their points. And then on the defensive end, the key factor that I'm looking at here for Central Michigan is their ability to not foul. And Ball State's number one offense, 42% of their field goal attempts are actually also taken from the free throw line. So their free throw attempt to field goal attempt ratio is 42%, which is the highest in the MAC. And Ball State or Central Michigan does not allow free throw attempts. So I think this is a good matchup for Central Michigan. They beat them last year, which I like because the teams were very similar. And in the MAC, pretty much all the teams are similar to last year. So it's very telling in the MAC to look back at last year's matchups. And what happened last year was a Central Michigan victory over Ball State at Ball State by a score of 82-76. So I like Central Michigan to win the game here, plus the 2.5.
All right. Well, I'm going to go a little money line myself here, and I'm going to take the Fresno State Bulldogs. Now, they're playing Boise. They're at Boise, and Boise has actually played really well as of late. But I don't want to take into account conference stats too much, just because the Mountain West is a weird conference where it's kind of top heavy and the bottom of the conference is awful. So both of these teams have played San Jose State, but San Jose State is just awful. And that's going to inflate your numbers, no matter what. Boise has also played a pretty banged up Wyoming team. And they also got San Diego State, who I think has been a big time underachiever. And so both teams play Nevada. Both teams have lost to Nevada, and Boise actually lost to Nevada the other day. It was early this week. I think that was a big game for them. Obviously, at home against Nevada, that's their chance to make a mark in the conference. And I think they came a little flat, or not. They didn't come up flat. They just lost, near a game-winning 3 by one of the Martin twins. That was it. And I think Fresno, if you look at the season as a whole, they've just been a lot better. I mean, they shoot the 3 ball extremely well, and I think that's kept them in games. That's what helped them beat Utah State. They're insane 3-point shooting percentage. And I think that their defense has actually been pretty good this year. They should be able to hold Boise. Boise's offense has been the best in the conference so far, but Fresno's still been pretty good. I think they should be able to, maybe force a couple turnovers, maybe at least play them to a deadlock. And then I think their 3-point shooting at the other end should help them out. I like Fresno State here. And I think that more so just the spot where Boise is probably going to be coming out a little bit flat, knowing that they just kind of, lost their chance at really the only marquee win they can get. They might play Nevada again, actually, but it's not going to be the same if it's on the road. So
yeah, that was a good game. I watched the whole thing.
It was a very good game, and Boise played well. They've been playing very well, and I just think that Fresno's kind of been the better team all year, and I worry is Boise getting a little bit too much love. So the spread is +2. If you really want to take that, you can, and more often than not, we will. But I do see a little value on the money line. We talked about it before. I see +125, which now we saw it at 1.5 and +125, which was a little bit of a head scratcher. +2 125. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds a little bit more accurate.
Yeah,
+2,
even so, I would say like just it seems like
I just saw I forget what game I was looking at, but the spread was -125 and the team was -2, -125. So I still feel like the +125 on +2 is pretty good value.
Yeah. And I think they should be able to win this game, especially if Boise comes out flat. So I like Fresno quite a bit. And then I think you got the next game.
I have a 6:00, a couple 6:00. So first, UTEP and Middle Tennessee. I'm taking the under in UTEP Middle Tennessee. This game's interesting.
I don't even think you told me about this one.
I didn't. I think
you might not have.
Now we got to go back to the tape.
Back to the tape. What's this? What's the line in it?
Actually, I did not tell you that.
Wow.
This one, I actually haven't bet it myself yet. That's probably why I didn't tell you. I'm actually taking the first half under here. The first half line is, let's see, 63. Okay. The reason why, and I've been experimenting with this a little bit, and it's actually been working. The faster tempo teams that I take the unders, I bet the first half, and then slower tempo team unders, I take full game because I think that allowing the tempos to kind of settle down over the course of a full game actually works better than.
Yeah, I like that strategy. And we always talk about how the second half, there's a lot more scoring. And sometimes it's just like you can't do anything about it. It's kind of crazy. Like these teams, there's something about just coming out in that first half and just kind of playing a little laissez-faire, you know? Yeah. I mean, look at what happened. We had the under in the Milwaukee game the other day. There was 50 points or something, and there was 95 in the second half.
Yeah,
and it went over. So it's just like it's hard to really predict in the second half what might happen, especially if the teams play at a faster pace.
Yeah. So I'm going to limit this one to the first half. UTEP and Middle Tennessee. I mean, they don't necessarily play at lightning paces, but they do play a little bit quicker than I would necessarily like for teams that I'm betting the under. Both teams have a terrible offense. Outside the top 300, both of them in KenPom, and it has not been any better in the conference. UTEP's offensive rating is 88, adjusted efficiency, which I think would be like the worst in college basketball if it was for the full season. And then Middle Tennessee's is 12th out of 14 teams in Conference USA. So basically, these offenses stink. The only way that you're really going to get points here is if both teams just go nuts from three, which is possible. And I'll list that as a caveat. And it's also another reason why I want to bet the first half here, because if they, I don't want to give them 30 chances to hit, 12 threes. I'd rather try to just hit it in the first half and get out while we can. We had the UTEP UAB under the other day, and I think at one point there was 5 straight possessions.
Oh my God! I looked at the play-by-play, and Joe, it's just, I mean,
and I think if we had the first half under on in that game, we might have hit it. So
no, I actually think it would have went over by like a point. So
a point. All right, yeah. So I just feel like I'd rather just take the first half here, rip the Band-Aid off. That's the only way we're going to lose this game is if both teams shoot 40 to 50% from three. I'll take the Middle Tennessee UTEP first half under 63. My other game at 6 was Rice and North Texas. This one's a real interesting game. North Texas and Rice played 2 weeks ago at Rice. And the final score of the game, and I actually, Chris, we bet the over in this game. So I was on it then, and I'm on it again.
Remember.
They played on December 29th at Rice. Final score, 103-87. If you can't do math, that's 190 points in the game, Rice and North Texas. We had the over in that game. It was 144.5. So they have made a bit of an adjustment now. The total I'm seeing is 147. Still don't think that's high enough. I mean, these two teams, Rice forces everyone to play fast. UTSA, 95-79. Louisiana Tech, who plays really slow, got up to 144 points with them. Southern Miss also plays really slow. They got up to 140 with them. So Rice is just, they don't play defense and they play really fast. North Texas seems to kind of play to their opponent's pace a lot. In games against Southern Miss, UTEP, Louisiana Tech were lower scoring, but their games against UTSA and Rice have gotten really high. So I like this game to go over the 147 total. Listen, 190 points the first time they played. At the very least, we're going to have a toss-up game here. I really think we have an advantage, though, betting this game over. So Rice, North Texas over.
Okay, I got a 6 o'clock as well.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to go with a big-time dog here, and I'm taking Tennessee State. Now, they're at Belmont, and Joe, you know how much I love to fade Belmont. But 18 is just too much for me, I think. This is a Tennessee State team that it's not very good, but they play a lot better since conference play started. Their offense has ticked up a bit, and they actually have a top 4 defense in the league. And they've forced the most turnovers. They cleared the defensive glass. They have not defended the 3-ball very well, which Belmont likes to shoot, but Belmont hasn't been shooting the 3-ball that great this year. And I don't know if they really have the horses to do so, especially when they're, A, trying to cover an 18-point spread, and B, they just had a really tough loss at Jacksonville the other night. They played in overtime. They lost the game, swept by Jacksonville State on the road. I just think they come out a little bit flat in this one. And I think Tennessee State has shown an ability to at least get to the free throw line and score, maybe not from 3, but they can score a little bit. So I think that they should be able to hang a little bit. And 18 is just too much. I mean, Belmont is clearly the better team, but asking them to lay 18 in this spot against a team that's kind of playing better, it's asking a lot. So I like Tennessee State. And
this is the State, not the Tech, correct?
Yes. There's the State, there's the Tech, there's the.
I feel like they're the same team.
There's the Martin, there's the University, the Volunteers, but we are talking about Tennessee State.
All right, Tennessee State plus 18. That is in the comment section. One more game for me, and that is UTSA.
Well, actually, before you do that, I actually have one. I actually have one more at 7 that I did not share with you yet because I was not sure what the line was going to be, and I'm still kind of waiting. It's a Towson Delaware game, and I like the under here if it gets to 133.5 or higher. And the reason being is that Towson is just an awful team. Like, they're just atrocious. They've shown how awful they are all year. Just ugly game after ugly game. Man. I know. Well, what a fall from grace. But ugly team, and they are facing a Delaware team. Both teams are not good at getting to the free throw line. So first, right off the bat, that's great. Are in the bottom 20 at pace. So both of these teams play extremely slow. Now, the one thing that might concern here is that, the defense, they have a pretty bad defense. Well, yes, but here's the thing. First of Delaware has actually kind of done a 180 in conference play where their offense has taken a dip and their defense has played better. And also Towson is just so bad offensively. I mean, I have no faith in them. They just don't have ways to manufacture points besides offensive rebounds. They really don't. And I think that showed in the Towson Drexel game the other night where Drexel, like I talked about earlier, defensive all college basketball, and Towson still wasn't able to get that game over. So I just think that against a Delaware team whose defense is actually getting better, still plays at a super slow pace, I think this game is going to be, a rock fight. And I like this. If it can get to 133.5, I would take the under for Towson Delaware.
All right, that is in the comments. I actually had one that we missed that I have not played yet, but I am probably going to play. So I'll give that now. It's Charlotte and Louisiana Tech. I like the under here. Both teams so slow pace. And Charlotte, they've actually played pretty well in conference play. Still a terrible offense. But they just slow the game down so much that they're able to stay in a lot of these games. But their last 3 games, neither team has even made it out of the 60s. The only game that's really been high scoring in conference so far for them was the game against Marshall, and always everyone gets up in the 170s against Marshall. But Louisiana Tech just played a game against Old Dominion, 127. A game against Middle Tennessee, 129. UAB, 117. Those are their last 3 games. And Charlotte, against Southern Miss, 63. Florida Atlantic, 65. So these teams are just playing so slow and such low-scoring games. I really don't see this game getting up there. And because they play at such slow tempos, I'm completely fine taking the full game under here. Charlotte, their main offense has come from threes and free throws. Louisiana Tech defends those both pretty nicely. I think this game's just, kind of both teams are taking 25 seconds each per possession. They're going through the motions, and you probably get a Louisiana Tech maybe 62-55 win or something like that. But I like the under here. So 130.5, I think. If you can get it there, go for it. Fire away. Louisiana Tech and Charlotte. One more game, and then, Chris, we could talk a little bit about just quickly, the big games of the day. There's 3.
Well, I also have one more game, but you go first.
Okay. All right. Sorry. UTSA. Kind of teased it before. Probably one of my favorite teams in college basketball. Chris, you probably know that since we've bet on them, I think, every one of their last 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, they're like JMU.
Their previous game was the only one they lost of those games, though. They
almost came back too.
Yeah, they almost won that one. They have been playing so well ever since the return of Javon Jackson from injury. Steve Henson, probably a top 5 coach in college basketball for me. He has improved this program every year since he got there. We had them to beat North Texas on Saturday last week. They gave North Texas their first loss of the year. Maybe we're a little flat against Middle Tennessee after that big win. I thought that their talent could overcome that. It didn't, but I think they hop right back on the wagon here and get the job done against UAB. They played UAB last year at UAB, and they beat them by 12 pretty comfortably. I think UAB is going to have a little bit of trouble with UTSA's tempo. UTSA really pressures the ball, and I think they're going to be able to turn UAB over a little bit. And then UTSA, they don't turn the ball over themselves. So they're going to get more shots up here. They're going to get they shoot great from the free throw line. And I think that when push comes to shove here, as you get down the stretch in this game, UTSA is just more polished of a team. They play better defense. And I think that they'll get the dub here, or at least cover the spread. They're getting 4.5. So give me UTSA plus 4.5 at UAB.
All right. And then my last one, I am going to go with USF, the South Florida Bolt. And this is probably one of my favorite teams in college basketball this year because USF has a very interesting profile. They're a team that, first of all, they were very bad last year. They really stepped up the defense this year, one of the better defensive teams in the country. And they have the best defense in the American Conference. And offensively, which has kind of been their bugaboo for however long, they've figured out ways to make it work. They're actually the number 2 team in the country in getting to the free throw line and the number 4 team in the country in getting offensive rebounds. So while they may not get their points in the most orthodox way, they can still get points. And I think what the lines and Vegas have said about this UTSA team is, well, we still think they're not as good because their offense is not very good. No, they can't shoot very well. That's no surprise. But I really think that they should be able to hang in games, especially these games that, they get decent amount of points. I mean, if you look at what they've done so far in the American Conference, they beat UConn at home. UConn's no slouch. They lost Tulsa on the road by 3. Not a bad loss, and I'm fairly sure they covered. They destroyed Tulane at home. And then they covered Temple and Cincinnati on the road. Both of them, they were double-digit dogs. They actually almost beat Temple. So they know how to hang. And this is going to be a tough test because they're getting Houston today. But they are home. And I think that Houston, their defense has been so good all year, but it's kind of predicated on the fact they're, able to hold teams to very low shooting percentages. It's going to happen anyway with South Florida. They're going to get to the free throw line. They're going to get their offensive boards. And then on the other end, their defense is just going to be really good against Houston. I mean, they've been pretty good at defending the three this year, which is what Houston likes to do. And Houston's offense they've kind of been like a slug it out team this year. And they're going to have some trouble, I think, with South Florida in a similar way that Cincinnati does. So I think that South Florida, now the line right now, it's a little low. I think it's 5.5. So what I would do is I believe we got it at 6.5, but
yeah,
I would wait for it to go to at least 6 and see if you can get that.
Okay. Do you see USF +6? That is it for our plays of the day.
Quite a bit. I think we have like 20.
Yeah, which is kind of par for the course these days. Let's talk about the 3 big games of the day real quick. Number 1, obviously, KenPom's 2 best teams in the country, Virginia and Duke. Duke minus Trey Jones. Is Reddish playing?
I believe so. I think he had just had an illness, and that's why he didn't play the other game.
All right. Well, what do you think here? I mean,
this game
got Virginia, Duke by 2. The line is 3.5.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get public money on Duke no matter what, so they have to make the line there. I think gun to my head, I would take Virginia with the points. I think it's a little too many. But this is interesting because I think at least they have Reddish back. I know Jones is going to be trouble. But what's interesting is that Duke is such an incredible marvel of a team offensively, unlike which we've really seen. And Virginia, of course, is the opposite way defensively. They have the best defense. They've had the best defense really for the past 5 years, probably, if not more. And I just think that, that's it. I don't know what's going to happen when Duke's athletes collide with the pack line defense of Virginia. I really don't know. Like
such an interesting game today.
I can see Virginia like shutting them down and frustrating the freshmen, but I could also see Duke just being like, all right, like
too big and too athletic.
We are overwhelming you. Now, yeah. I think the key to this game for Virginia is DeAndre Hunter, because he is one of the guys that has the athleticism and the NBA talent to match up.
He's the guy that missed the tournament last year, and
yes,
I shouldn't say tournament, the one game.
Right. Yeah, but he's got the size, the skill to take care of maybe one of the Duke players, maybe RJ Barrett, and I think that would go a long way. So I think, gun to my head, I would take Virginia and the points. But it's going to be an incredible game for the total too. I mean, I have no idea. You know, right now the total is probably around like 140 or something. I really have no idea which way it's going to go. Duke has been all over the overs, and Virginia, obviously, a very heavy under team.
It is 136.5 right now. So yeah, it's a clash of styles. I think I'd probably lean towards Virginia too, but I agree with you. There's a shot here that Duke's athleticism and talent is just too overwhelming, and this is going to show us a lot, because the 2 teams that Duke has lost to this year were Gonzaga and Syracuse, the teams that can match up athletically with Duke. Duke has not lost yet to a team that plays that quintessential college game, good defense, maybe a little bit undersized, just plays disciplined basketball. They struggled a little bit against Texas Tech, but they beat them. So this is your first game now where Duke is really going to be playing against that style that is, slow the game down, play defense, shoot the three. And I'm interested to see how they fare against Virginia. This will be a good test going forward, so you could kind of gauge, will they win the NCAA tournament this year? I think this.
Yeah, I don't know about that. They've seemed, a little mortal recently, and I think that maybe the hype for them has been a little much. Yeah, but at the same time, that doesn't mean they're not the best team in college basketball.
So the other 2 games that are huge today. Number 1 is Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin has struggled a bit lately, but this could be a little bit of a tough game here for Michigan. Another team, Michigan and Virginia, the 2 teams in college basketball right now that remain undefeated, and both of them are going to be probably have their biggest challenges of the season today. Does Wisconsin get Michigan today?
I kind of think so. I think that this is a game where it's going to be, again, an interesting style game, and in a different way, because these two teams, they like to grind it out. They both do.
I mean,
they're
what's the score
both
going to be
on the
today?
Virginia line.
55-54.
I just worry that Michigan, to me, is a fascinating team for one of the best teams in college basketball, because I know they're really talented. And I know, obviously their defense is so good. And obviously, I mean, they've shown year by year that they can be a great program. John Beilein, I mean, do we think he's the best coach in college basketball? I think he's.
I mean, it's him or Jay Wright, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I just worry a little. I think that at some point Michigan has been so hot that I think that there is a bit of a letdown maybe coming. And they're laying 3 at Wisconsin, a game where obviously Wisconsin,
They've been struggling.
They have, but this is a game they really need, I think. And I just think that that the Badgers, they may be able to steal one here. I think it's going to be another grinded out game. And I just think, like, we've seen Michigan play really well, but at the same time, I mean, they've had really one tough road game this year. And it was against Villanova, where they destroyed Villanova, which is great. But I think Villanova also wasn't really the Villanova we've seen recently. And then aside from that, I mean, they've played, what is it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've played 10 of their last 12 at home, mostly against poor competition. I mean, they beat Indiana and they beat Purdue. Those were good. But, they went to Illinois. That wasn't a problem. They were at Northwestern, and they only won that game by 2. I think Wisconsin gets them here. I think it's a little bit of not a trap game, but a game where
Wisconsin kind of needs it more,
Yeah. And I think Michigan, at a certain point, like this is really, like, we talk about analytics and KenPom all on the show. This is a gut feeling game where I think that, maybe there's a bit of a, just a desire more from Wisconsin, and a Michigan team that's been, so hot for so long. Do they finally come back down to earth a little bit?
Yeah, I think I might agree with you there. I mean, it's obviously going to come down to, can Wisconsin score against this really good Michigan defense?
And that'll be tough.
It's up to Ethan Happ, and can he stay out of foul trouble, and can the other guys hit the threes? Because between Trice Davison and Roivers, they haven't been great. Roivers had a good game against Maryland, trying to bring them back the other day, but Trice hasn't really been that great during this losing streak. Davison, he's a fighter, but he hasn't really been knocking down the threes of late the way he's so accustomed to. They're going to have to be the guys that step up around Happ, but it's really going to come down to Happ. Can he stay out of foul trouble, score, distribute, do it all? Final game, Kentucky at Auburn.
Is this a second place ball for the SEC? Tennessee's been unreal.
Yeah, I mean, but these two teams are very, very good. And Auburn, I think, kind of flying a little bit under the radar right now for how good that they are.
They've been really just taking it to teams.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good game. A lot of athletes here. I mean, we were talking about, Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 of the top teams in the country. You wouldn't necessarily consider them to have some of the best athletes in the country. Kentucky, Auburn, I think you would. It's going to be a completely different style of game. It'll be fast-paced. It'll be a lot of dunks, a lot of three-point shooting. I think in the end, though, and Chris, Kentucky has played the best defense in the SEC so far. Will they be able to go on the road and duplicate what they've been doing against their SEC opponents so far?
Yeah, Kentucky's a weird team, and I feel like they've been weird teams where, in the past couple of years, they've had a lot of talent, a lot of athletes, and haven't really been able to quite put it together. I don't know if that's a testament to Calipari or not, against Calipari, I have to say, though, I would love for Kentucky to win this game. That would be great for the Hall's profile. But they have a very good team. Tyler Hero has been playing great. I've loved what I've seen out of PJ Washington and his improvements this year, and of course, Keldon Johnson has been the star freshman. But they do seem like a team that maybe could fall a little susceptible on the road. And, obviously a young team as always, Kentucky. Auburn has been playing really well. And as I said, just taking it to teams. and scoring a ton. They're the best team in the country at forcing turnovers as well. So that's going to be big. And Kentucky, they don't have Quade Green anymore. They seem to me like a team that when faced against some of the better competition, they may struggle a little bit because they've gotten back on track recently. And I know they had that big win against UNC and now a win at Louisville, which is looking better and better by the day. But I do worry against an offensive firepower team like Auburn. Like, will they be able to slow down Auburn, a top 10 team in the nation offensively? And will they be able to, really prevent them from shooting threes? I mean, they love shooting threes, and that's going to be, Auburn, I think, can get you uncomfortable in a hurry with a barrage of 3-pointers and maybe some turnovers, especially at home.
Another big test game here. This is when you're picking your brackets in March, you're going to have to look back at games like this when you're getting into your Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchups. Can, Auburn, as good as they were last year, they were a two and done, barely beat Charleston, lost to got destroyed by Clemson the game after that. So can Auburn do it against good competition? They have not really beaten anyone yet this year. I think I would kind of lean towards Kentucky here, actually, until I see Auburn do it. Their best win this year is against Dayton, or maybe Washington or Murray State, but none of those are really great wins. Interesting game here. A lot of different styles here. Auburn, great at turning the opponents over, great on the offensive boards, struggle on the defensive boards. They shoot a lot of threes. Kentucky doesn't really shoot any threes. I mean, there's got a lot of different clashing styles here. Who's going to win out? Interesting matchup. I think I'd lean towards Kentucky. That's it. That's all we got here on the spread.
Just that. That's it. All. I think we've got enough to entertain you all Saturday. Though I will say, we don't have any games after 8. We only have 2 games at 8. So it'll be a nice day, and you can, get to bed early or whatever else you want to do.
Let's go. I'm going to a comedy show at 10 o'clock tonight. So
perfect. So that couldn't have been better.
Yeah. All right. That will do it for the spread. Thanks for watching here on this Saturday, January 19th. We'll be with Northern Kentucky head coach John Brannon on this week's episode of the Sports Brunch. So make sure you download that on iTunes, and we'll see you there. Have a good one, everybody. Good luck.